make our children feel that they are not even part of us. We don't care about them. That's how sometimes they tend to feel. But in actual fact, we really do care about them. And how are we going to be able to curb all these things? Because when we neglect them, it means that we haven't exhibited the exercise of parental care or parental needs or parental responsibilities that we have to give them. You know that with kids, we always need to provide them with the physical needs, social needs, psychological needs, emotional needs, among others. And sometimes, as busy as we are not able to fulfill all these things, which make these kids feel neglected. And we would want to look at some of the causes, some of the effects, and the possible solutions that can help us to prevent parental negligence. Without wasting much time, I think we'll go straight to our discussion for this evening. I once again welcome Mrs. Lai and Martha to the platform. Please, you are welcome.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for accepting to be part of the panelists. I'll start with Mrs. Lai. Mrs. Lai, please, what is parental negligence? When we say parental negligence, what do we mean?
Good evening. Parental negligence, I would like to say failure to meet up with a child's basic needs. We call that parental negligence, or also situations where the child has been placed in danger or exposed to abuse or violence could also be termed as parental negligence. So basically, those are the definitions: denying the child or failure to meet a child's basic needs, or exposing the child to danger or violence.
Okay, thank you. So please, what causes this? Is it that it's something natural that is bound to happen, or what causes it? Is it that we have a busy schedule, or because the world is changing, that is why these things are happening? What causes parental negligence?
There are a whole lot of factors that can cause parental negligence. The one that I think about first of all is the lack of knowledge and skills in bringing up children. So sometimes we enter into parenthood and the challenges are so tremendous. You enter and it's like sometimes it's too overwhelming, not knowing what we are going into. So I think that first of all, we need to know what parenthood is even before having children. We need to get knowledge even before having children on how to raise up our kids. So one is lack of knowledge in bringing up kids. Another one that we can talk about is, should I use the word lack of employment, or lack of employment, where you see that parents are not well employed, they are not getting enough jobs to do to provide for the children. Then you see that in that case, children are being denied some of what they need, their basic needs, not because they want to, but because it is not just there to provide for the children. And I always say that the Bible says that, I can't quote exactly, but you don't bring up children into the world to suffer. So parents must also be careful when it comes to parenthood to make sure that we are ready to bring the children up. Sometimes you may even have a job, but along the way, probably you're out of job. That can also cause to parental negligence in the sense that the children's basic needs are not being provided. We also look at marital problems. Sometimes we realize that parents are having marital problems, and instead of focusing on children, they're focusing more on their issues. In that case, in a way, children are also being neglected, where sometimes if there's violence in the relationship, children are exposed to these violence and kind of affect children's psychological aspects of their lives. So that there are so many reasons that we can go on and talk about why children are being of parental negligence, some of the reasons why we're going to parental negligence. You also talk about the mental health. You see that some parents are not mentally sound. So in that case, if parents are not mentally sound, probably into drugs, into alcohol and other substances, there's no way that that child will probably taking care of that psychological aspect of that child is just out. So I was able to say that coming from the education background, when you are a teacher in the class, probably sometimes you need to tap into the children you are teaching. You may not even know what they are going through at home. So sometimes you realize that they come to school, their performance at school is not going up, or sometimes the child is up and all of a sudden it's that the child is coming down. There may be some psychological issues, emotional issues that the child is facing. So sometimes these issues also bring about kind of negligence on parents' aspect. Like I said, it may not be the fault of the parents. Mental health is also another factor that we can think about. But then just before we go on, I just want to say that when it comes to parenting styles, we have parenting styles, which can also have a problem. We have 4 types, basically 4 types. Maybe that's not all. We have the authoritative parents, authoritarian parents, we have permissive parents, and uninvolved parents. If you look at some of these things, they have their strengths. Some of them have strengths and some of them have weaknesses. For instance, if you talk about the uninvolved parents, you don't even ask your child about the homework. You don't care. What did you do at school? You don't ask the child about anything that the child is going through. In that case, the child will be rather dependent on people from outside, depending on outside influences. You don't even know where your child is. If somebody comes to your house, where's your child? I don't even know. You don't know their friends. You don't know anything about them. And also, you don't spend much time with them. You expect them to raise themselves. So sometimes you see that these kids have to even go out there and struggle for themselves, exposed to danger also outside there. And at the end of the day, you realize that such children struggle with self-esteem. Their self-esteem is already destroyed because that relationship is not there. Sometimes in their school, they will be performing poorly also. Their behavioral problems, they are now on their own, so they display a whole lot of behavioral problems. So when you look at some of these types of parenting, we actually need to read about these things so that you know exactly where you face. So this one is on the extreme. That you also have one also on the extreme where I say this and that is it. So I'm talking about the psychological aspects of parental negligence, that I say this, these are the rules. You don't have to say anything. When I say this, you don't. When I say sit, you sit. When I say stand, you stand. In that case, we become so authoritative that children don't even have a voice of their own. I realize that their self-esteem here is being trampled upon. I remember that even as educators, we are told that even the class, make the rules with your students in the class. If you don't do your homework, what happens? If you don't do this, what happens? So you know that you are held liable at any time, but where your voice is not supposed to be heard every time is about the parents. You don't take their feelings into consideration. So when it comes to parental negligence, it's not just the basic needs. We also have the other aspects of the child, the psychological, the emotional aspect that makes up the child. So basically, there are a lot of reasons that we can go on and on. Single parenthood is not easy. Even with both at home, it's not easy, not to talk of one person raising their children all alone. The challenges are very, very tremendous, and we need support. So these days, we realize that we are now living like, let me say, the whites. We are living on our own. We don't have external support from extended family as it used to be. That is also another factor. You have to face it all alone, and sometimes resolving to nannies. Now you have to bring nannies into your home, which is also another topic on its own. So there are so many things that can cause parental negligence. I don't know if I've been able to satisfy the question.
Yes, you have. That was deep. Thank you. Martha, so I think Mrs. Lai has thrown more light on a lot of things here. And I just want to find out, so with the psychological, I'll pick on the psychological needs or psychological neglect, because these are some of the things that we might not see it physically. We might not even, sometimes we don't take notice of it. We think that it is normal. Some children might be so quiet in class or so quiet wherever they find it, even in church, and they might be going through a lot of things. But because we don't know that, maybe it is due to psychological neglect, we are not able to help the child in a way that we should. So what I want to ask is, if we know that these are causes of psychological neglect, how are we going to curb it? How do we go about it? Or how do we even advise parents on this one, especially?
Okay, so if children are psychologically neglected, then it means that parents are not conscious of how much the activities are affecting their child's psychological needs. And so in doing that, parents will have to know that each child is different. And parents also have to know that children are also human beings. They have thoughts, they have ideas, they have emotions, they have worries, the fears, anxieties every human being have. Children also have it. And so when we are conscious that these children have these emotional and psychological feelings, or these aspects of them are as functional as every normal human being, then of course parents will have to be more conscious of that. So first I'll say that parents will have to be aware that children also have fears, they have anxieties, they have thoughts, they have questions, they have doubts, they have their own issues as they go about life normally. They see things and it has an impact on how they think and their mental health as a whole. And so when parents are conscious of that, that is the first step to go. And then if you are conscious that these children also have these aspects of them, then in dealing with them, we will have to note and treat them as such. And so knowing that each child is different, you take note of their differences in dealing with them. When you have to correct them, the way and manner it is being done, such that one child or the child doesn't feel useless, let me use that, or it doesn't affect the child's self-esteem. So the way and manner these children are corrected, the way and manner we handle issues that concerns them, how we even talk to them, how we address them. Your child comes that, oh, mommy or daddy, have something to say. The response you give them, or you are making a decision concerning them, how much you are involving them. Do they have a say? How is that affecting them? These are things parents will have to be conscious of in handling our children so that their psychological life is not deprived. And so we know that if they go to school and they come back and they have one complaint or the other, we don't brush it off. If the child approaches or is showing signs, that you don't just brush it off. You are conscious that the child has that aspect that needs to be addressed. And so we are conscious and then we treat them as such. That's what I have to say for now. I hope it is good.
Yes, thank you. Please, I just want to remind ourselves that it's an interactive night, and we are all discussing it, just that we have facilitators who are helping us to discuss it. So along the line, we'll be asking questions, and because we have our names up here, I'll just be mentioning names, and you also chip in your suggestions or your comments. Martha, back to the case again. So with regard to our culture, you know that sometimes as children, they don't even have a say in whatever decisions that their parents take. And it is sometimes it's so disrespectful for parents or for elderly people to see that a child is talking back to his or her parents, or a child is telling his or her parents what he or she needs. It's sometimes upset because that is not accepted in our culture. So how do we even bring up these kids in a way that they will know that if I want this, this is the channel that I have to use? Or how do we even educate our parents to know kids also have needs? Kids also have a say in how they live their life. Do we have to give them the chance, or do we go back to that cultural norm that akwalade only say like whatever we are discussing? So whatever your parents tell you, that is what you are supposed to take up.
Okay, so looking at our culture and the way children are raised, of course, as has been said, normally a child doesn't have a say in the home. It's being said that children are to be seen and not to be heard. And so it is expected that you only do what you are told. You only talk when you're asked to talk. or your concerns doesn't count. I think over time, we all know that that doesn't help. It isn't the right way to go about raising a child. Because if we look back at some of us, the way we were trained or from our cultural background, you grow up becoming timid, having a low self-esteem, and the other challenges that are associated with being that. And so as much as we are raising children in this culture, I think it's high time we come to the realization that children are not supposed to be seen alone, but they will have to be heard. And then in hearing them, then of course it will come to how we, the parents, would regulate the whole situation, because children are smaller beings. One philosopher said that they are a blank slate, and they will have to be directed on how to go. And so coming from the perspective that they are not only to be seen, but to be heard, from their onset, from their raising, we ask them. And so I want to give you this. What do you think? Do you want it? Is it okay for you? We ask those questions in moderation, in consciousness of our culture. Because maybe the way you want to raise your children in your home, it is okay. You are talking and your child talks back at you. For you, it may be okay. But then we are living in a culture that does not really accept that. And so as we are still talking about it and people are getting to know that it is children are not only to be seen, it is not everybody that recognizes that. So in order not for your child to be considered as disrespectful or insolent or ill-mannered, you, the parents, will have to know how to go about it, how to regulate it. So at the back or at the consciousness that a child can have a say, a child's opinion can be sought. It is done in consciousness of the culture, so that it doesn't go overboard, so that your child doesn't go out and it is seen as a problem. And so in raising the child as a parent, I would suggest that as early as possible, you talk to them. So you don't just only provide their needs and go, but talk to them. The moment they're able to communicate, even before they're able to communicate, you still have a normal talk with them. As long as they're able to communicate back, you have chats, you have discussions, you talk about issues. You tell them that this one is done, this one is not done. Of course, I'm seeking for your opinion on this. But then in another situation, you would have to ask for this or that. We have to guide them in such a way that we are not making them timid because we are suppressing their views, but also we are sensitive of our culture such that our children will not be classified as insolent, because if it is too much, or if they are too outspoken, quote and unquote, society may have issues with them, and fitting in our context currently may be an issue. And so I would suggest that we allow them express themselves. We take note of their needs, but then conscious of our culture, such that we do not raise so much of children who are controlled, and also we do not expose them, make them so, quote and unquote, loose to become an issue in our society. So that's what I'll say about that.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Lai, someone has asked this question in the chat box. She says, please, which age are we supposed to involve children in family decisions? Which age are we supposed to involve children in family decisions?
Yeah, so sorry, I just went off a bit. But then coming from the education aspect, it says that what you teach children when they are young is what they will grow up with, the habits that you start with. So as early as possible, they can communicate. We start involving them in decisions, especially when you can see that the maturity for children, if you look at children, 2 years, 3 years, I always say that even 2-year-old child, when he or she is doing something bad and you are coming, they will run. Why do they run? Because they know that at that moment, that act is something that is, so as early as possible, we should involve them in decision making. I always say that raising children in this contemporary world is not that easy. Times are changing, and as times are changing, that has not changed our roles, our duties, our responsibility as parents, but we also need to look at the times. For instance, I would say that in my home, we normally have meetings. So meetings, what is it that we are doing that you don't like? And we also give our own opinion. This is also what you are doing that we don't like. And then, I mean, it's like, as parents, you're able to know that maybe there are some things you are doing that is hurting your child, or there are some actions that you are doing that your children don't like. So I think that as parents also, we should have that kind of forum where children can express themselves. It shouldn't be that this is it. You go this way, and that's it. You have no room to say anything. But like Sister Martha said, they also have their own lives. They have their emotions. They have things that they are going through. So if you don't open up to them, how can they even tell you what they are going through? Emotionally, they may be dying inside and probably will seek answers from outside. So I would say that as early as possible, you can communicate. We should start taking decisions. Another thing that I want to look at is look at the angle whereby your child, even right now, even children as young as they are, they want to choose what they wear. They want to choose what they wear. And here you are saying that this is what I want you to wear. And the child is saying that I don't want to wear this. Sometimes you just need to give them the freedom to operate. Your child choosing what he or she will wear, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, so long as it is acceptable. But then there is, I want you to wear this, and that is it. And then you see your child going out with you with that gloomy face, not even feeling good in what he or she is wearing. So as early as possible, we should raise them to even make decisions, because I always say that the days of spoon feeding are gone. We need to also make children to think, to make decisions. When we are not there, we know that they can make the right decision, but we need to supervise them. We need to guide them. We need to be there for them. So I would say that as early as possible, let us involve them in decisions.
Okay, thank you. Just a follow-up question before we engage our audience. So I just want to create a scenario, then we can discuss it. Supposing you want your child to maybe pursue medicine in the university, and maybe he also wants to rather do graphic design. You know, the prospects of reading medicine and the prospects of reading maybe graphic design. So weighing the two, if your child insists that this is what I want, I think I am good in designing things, I am good in drawing, I am good in putting colors together, so I would want to be a graphic designer in future. But you as a parent, you think that the prospects in being medicine or in reading medicine, it's better than that of graphic design. But your child so insists that this is what I want. How do you handle such a situation? How do you handle it so that your child will not feel that you are just imposing the course on him? And you know that when you impose courses on your children, sometimes the outcome might be disastrous. So how do you handle such a problem?
Please, Sister Bodri, do you want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
Hello? Hello?
Yes,
okay.
please.
Yes. I always say that children, we shouldn't dictate for our children. Interest. My husband's
I think we've lost Mrs. Lai. So I know there are some parents here, or even if there are not parents here, I know that people who have experienced parenting in one way or the other. I think Mrs. Lai is back. Oh, hello.
Hello, yeah, I'm back. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
So can I continue from there? All right. So he says
yes,
the doctor is for my father, but the musician is for me myself. So sometimes we have our own selfish interests. I want my child to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer. The child says, no, this is not what I want to be. Sometimes we kind of, at the end of the day, if that child doesn't do well, then it becomes a big issue. Somebody is going to school and the father wants him to do science. The child says, I don't want to do science, I want to do business. It takes a teacher to convince that child's parent that the child wants to do business. What is wrong with doing business? So I think that when it comes to career choices, let our children, yes, we can guide them. We can educate them. We can let them go for counseling, career choices and all that, but let them make their own choice. I always say that for me as a person, my calling has always been children. Ever since I was a young girl, when you are looking for me, my mother will ask, has somebody giving birth around this area? The moment they say yes, they will find me there sitting right there by the babies. So I always say that we all have our interests, but we will thrive where we have our interests. But for our own selfish reasons, we shouldn't be authoritarians. I want you to be a doctor, and that is it. I want you to be a doctor, and that is it. There's nothing, whether you do well in science or I just want you to be a doctor. I think that would be selfish on our part. We can pray for them, we can guide them, but I think they should make their own choices. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So please, I know that most of the people here are parents, and even if you are not a parent, you've experienced or you've witnessed people parenting, and we'd want to have your thoughts on this topic. What do you think is the cause of parental neglect? Why do you think that sometimes our children feel neglected in the house? Or do we even realize that our children feel neglected? I'll be calling out the names, please. So if I call you and you are by your phone, then you can answer it. I've seen Evelyn Asamoah. Hello, Evelyn. Okay, if Evelyn is not there, I've seen Beverly Ajua Puku. Beverly. Okay.
Hi.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Beverly, we are listening.
Hi. Please,
yeah, please.
Sorry.
Beverly, did you get the question?
I wanted to know the question again. Sorry, I didn't get it well.
Oh, okay. The question was, from our point of view, what do we think parental neglect is? And do we even notice it when our children feel neglected? Do we notice it, or it's our children who come to us to tell us that they feel neglected? Thank you.
Okay. You see, mostly in our settings, as Auntie T and Auntie Martha has been saying already, mostly we kids, we are not given that chance to express ourselves. And sometimes the kids, how they behave, you see them, parents are there, other siblings are around, but this particular child is not around. This particular child's mood has changed. Sometimes if the parents are really, really into these kids, they would get to know through that. Because some children are going through a lot, but wouldn't be able to come. And mostly that's when they go to their moms, maybe to the extreme that you would even see them come to their moms. Maybe dad is doing this, dad wants me to do this, dad wants me to pursue this, but I'm not interested in it. And mostly some daddies don't get the listening ear. And if moms too don't get that listening ears to listen to the kids, it becomes a problem. And if moms get that listening ears, then they are able to talk to daddies. Sometimes you see the fight that even goes on at the back of the door just to defend this case. And the daddies would sometimes be like, you're always defending this case. I know what is right for them. This is right for them. I am trying to put them at the right path, and you are still trying to support them in this. But mostly the kids that are able to go to their moms or even their daddies and express themselves and given a chance, at the end of the day, you see that those kids are even better than the ones that our parents really imposed a course or something on them, and you would see that that child is happy in the new thing that he or she is able to discover. And if parents are even if parents are able to give us kids that chance, they would get to know that yes, truly, this is what the child said, and that child has really excelled in that aspect. And the happiness that comes later, and parents even enjoy that happiness even more than that kids. So children are not able to say, but if parents will really, really, really observe the children, they would know that there is something going on. And parents should humble themselves, if that is the right word, and have listening ears for them. If these kids are not able to come to us, they should ask, Yaya Weyamo, we want to do this for you. What do you think? I think this is best for you, but what do you also think? Then you get to know that the kids really, really want something that is going to help all of us. So that is what I can say about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Beverly. I've seen Bright Sophia's hand up. Please, do you want to add something to it?
Yes, please. I would want to contribute to it.
Okay, please go ahead.
I would say that my greetings to all Impact members that are on board right now. We are here because of Auntie Martha. She's part of our family, so she invited us here. Anyway, with regards
You're
to the allowing students to choose, or children rather, to make a choice with regards to their career path and all those things, I think I hold a different opinion on that. Reason being that I have friends who were advised by their parents to go in a certain trajectory or direction. They decided to go the other way around. And some of them are really struggling now in life. And it looks like we told you so. They felt like they had a passion for this particular thing. They should allow them go in that line and it will help them. And now they are regretting. So I believe that it is based on who is experienced one, and then how well the person has information on that particular thing the child wants to choose. Because, just like we are saying, let's say as a parent, I have influences at certain places and my child is brilliant enough to do medicine, but he feels like he wants to go into dondology or play drums or something because he thinks he's skilled in that area. I believe that the child should first listen to his parents, because I think that they've been there before you and they have seen enough more than you. So you do the medicine. After that, there is plenty of life for you to also divert into whatever you want to do. So if at the end of the day, what you chose is not feeding you and bringing money to the table, especially when you are married, you can still fall back on the medicine or whatever your parents helped you with. And then life can be better. At least you can find that balance. Rather than saying, well, I want to get into acting, ask yourself how many people have become lead roles or have earned lead roles. Go to Hollywood and you find a lot of the people gallivanting all over looking for an opportunity, and they've still not landed one. How do those people feed themselves? So it's a win-win situation here. There must be a balance. A conversation must go on. And then you, the parent, tell the child that, well, you see, I have your best interest at heart. I'm not preventing you from doing what you want to do, but based on experiences and certain things, I know let's go this way, and then you will have the opportunity to also extend your tentacles to the areas you want to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bryce. Okay, so Bryce is of the view that it's not always that we would have to listen to our kids. Sometimes we need to also also tell them or show them the way so that they may they may not struggle later in life. I am laughing because of the dondology aspect that you made mention, and also about the acting aspect. But okay, I also say that, you know, I think before people came to the limelight, football was something that many parents wouldn't want their children to play. I think it was until Black Stars started doing well that people really got attracted to football. So if your child says, I want to be a footballer in the future, you want to give the child a chance to also exhibit his or her skills? Don't you think that it is also going to earn him or her a certain status in the society? Do we always have to let them do that white collar job that we assume will make them prosperous in future?
Agosia, can I come in here?
Yeah, you can.
I don't want to seem like hijacking the program. So let me just maybe give this opinion and then just draw back for others to also have their say. You see, I don't know if you've ever heard of coast football before. Coast football. You ask yourself how many of those boys growing up in a Suyabua, and then the boys played on the football park and all those things. I saw a lot of these guys that were very skillful. And most of them are taxi drivers now, coast football and all those things. How many of them learned? That is not what I'm saying. We shouldn't know that there are some footballers that actually signed enslaved because they could not even read the document. They could not interpret whatever was given to them. So I'm just trying to say that, well, there is the academy football and there is the other ones there. And the academy football would always combine that with education, where if at a point you have a profession and then you also have that talent that can also make a way for you. So I know one of the European footballers, I know he's an accountant, a professional accountant, as in he has a master's or a PhD in the financing area. And then he's also a footballer. So anytime that he's injured or he decides to withdraw from footballing, he can still go back into accounting and whatever it is, and then find a living out of that. I believe that we compare the football aspect or whatever talent the person has, but then the education thing must be paramount, because it looks like most of those with the talents drop the education along the line. But if they can have it at par, the education on one hand, the talent on one hand, if the talent doesn't pull any surprise for you, you can still fall back on your education. That's what I think anyway.
Okay, thank you. Martha, please, are there any effects of parental negligence on our children?
Of course, parental negligence have so much effects on the child. You see, the family is the first point of contact for the child in the world. The moment the child is born, the family is the first point of contact. So the child's emotional, psychological, physical well-being, everything that the child becomes has its roots from the family and from the parents, who are the first point of contact. And so if it happens that the child does not receive what is needed for the child to have that life, then of course it affects the entire life of the child. And so when the child is neglected, it has effect on the child, it has effect on the society as a whole. And so on the child, some children, you see, sometimes parents are too busy, or for whatever the reason may be, may not be feeding their children well, whether they are not able to afford it or they are just not around. Mrs. Lai talked about mental issues and all of that. Some parents are just not able to care for their children. So if a child is physically denied and it's not being treated, it's not being fed well, then their growth is going to be affected, because this child will not get the nutritional benefits needed for the body and even the mind to grow. And so you realize that that child may have stunted growth or academically may not be doing well because the mind is not fully developed or did not get the nutrient needed for development. So that is one of them. Children also may have low self-esteem. Your first bond or your first emotional development is from your family. You're supposed to receive love. You're supposed to receive all the support from them. And if you do not get it, somehow your self-esteem, your self-worth is affected. Anxiety, depression, children become sad. You are expected to come home. You see, as a child, all that you care about is somebody. You just come home, a happy child, be around parents, have somebody to talk to, somebody to be there. And so when those things are not around or are not provided, sometimes children step into depression. And so they are moody, they are sad, and then that affect their general well-being. And sometimes too, children who are exposed to, who are neglected, sometimes resort to stealing. Let's take a child who is not fed well at home, a child who is always hungry. Wherever he sees food, money that can give him food, this child may resort to stealing as a child. And you see, the effect of parental neglect is not only for the child at the childhood stage, even when the child grows into an adult, a neglected, let me use a neglected adult or a neglected child who has grown into becoming an adult also have problems. So as a neglected person or as a neglected adult, you realize that this person will have problem relating with other people because that bond, that scale of relating, social relationship was not developed in the family setting. So you realize that what one of the theories talks about the fact that the early stages of a child, the caregivers who are feeding, bathing, and taking care of the child help the child to develop that emotional aspect of him or her. And so when that aspect is neglected, or when the child is neglected, their emotional life becomes affected, and that will affect their interpersonal relationship in their adulthood life. And so as adults, they will have problems with their relationships. And of course, we have already talked about the fact that because they are not developing well, their learning abilities also be affected. Then some of them may have mental health issues. I've already talked about anxiety, depression as a child, and they may grow into adulthood with it when it is not resolved. Some of them may have suicidal thoughts. A child who is not given attention, who is not well taken care of, who is neglected, may want to end his or her life if the opportunity is given. Because some of them would ask questions, did I do something? I'm not being loved. I'm not being given attention and care and all of that. And so some of them may have suicidal thoughts, feeling of not being loved, and that will affect their general emotional being. They grow up into becoming alcohol and drug abuse addicts because they didn't get the emotional support needed in their growing years. They become adults and they tend to resort to alcohol and drugs to find fulfillment or to fill the vacuum or somehow to even numb their feelings. So if they are high on alcohol, they are high on drugs, well, they are sorted out by that. And so that tends to numb their emotions. And then you have people who have behavioral problems as adults because as a child they were neglected. And so perpetrators of abuse, people who are narcissists, people who have issues with aggressiveness, aggression, sometimes researchers have come to show that some of these things are as a result of neglect in their childhood, where their parents were not available, where they were not given the care they needed as children. Then, of course, violence and criminal activities. A child who is hungry and stealing as a child grows up and, if not handled, becomes a criminal. And so that is one of them. And then people we are seeing on the street, homelessness, all of these are as a result of parental neglect. If parents are home providing for their children, providing the educational needs, their emotional, psychological, and every other need, they wouldn't find themselves on the street. If these people on the street are parents who are providing for them, you will not see these children homeless and on the streets and all of that. And so that is also one of the effects child neglect brings. And of course, issues of these teenage pregnancies is one of them. I was listening to somebody's story, I think today, and the person was talking about the fact that she wasn't being provided for. And so as early as possible, she had to find means of survival. And then she landed herself in pregnancy, a teenage or unplanned pregnancy. So that is one of them. And then lastly, it can be fatal to the point of death. You see, when children are not catered for or parents neglect their responsibilities, they are exposed to abuse. And so supposing that you have a girl child, let me use that as an example, and then a parent is not fully playing the role, maybe they are even around, they are providing, feeding, but maybe by their work schedules, they leave home, they don't come there early, there is no nanny, so the child close from school and the child is by him or herself, let me use her, I'm talking about girl, by herself all throughout the afternoon to the evening where parents come. If some pedophile is in the area and takes notice that this child is always alone, then of course the child is in trouble. And so these children are exposed to abuse, they are exposed to danger. The child is alone. There is a pit somewhere. Before you realize, the child has fallen into it. And you see, when they are young, sometimes they are not even conscious of what is dangerous and what is harmful. And because parents are not so watchful, because parents are not so much into taking their responsibilities, some activities of these children can even result to death. So before you realize, some child has drowned in some pit somewhere, or some child has been involved in one misfortune or the other that can lead to death. So what I'm saying is that because a child's first point of contact with the world is the family, whatever happens in the family has effect on the individual as a child and even as an adult in their grown life. And so when these responsibilities are neglected, we have children, it creates problems for the child as a child. And then some of these problems grow with them into adulthood. So society as a whole even suffer for parental neglect. If you have a criminal, somebody's child produces an armed robber, the whole society suffers for that. And so child neglect, of course, has effects that are dangerous for the individual and for the society as a whole. So.
Thank you, Martha. Mrs. Lai, please, as an educator, as a leader of the children's ministry, as a mother, and as somebody who normally comes into contact with so many kids, have you noticed some effects of parental negligence on kids? How does it affect them?
Yeah, one that you realize is sometimes there's no control. You see that the child has no control. And then tracing the background, realize that there seems to be a marital issue. And apparently the mother is out of the home, only the father taking care of the children. Realize that the stress is on one person working. You can see that there's no control. So coming to school, realize that the school also has a great role to play, knowing the background of that child and seeing how much you can also help that child. You also realize that some of the children, it's like the love is not there. You see that when it comes to that kind of attachment, they come to school and always they want to hug you, they want to hold you. Realize that that kind of affection is missing in the home. And you also go back and realize that there's also a marital problem, some kind of separation or divorce there. So realize that it has some effects on the children, and also not having enough time to, like she's saying, the health issue. For me, I always say that nowadays we need to be careful, especially with health. Even children in their young are now having lots of things that never used to be there before. You hear of a child having diabetes, having cancer, and all that sort. So even when it comes to nutrition, what kind of food do we give to the children? This is what I can afford, and that is it all. A meal that is not balanced is given to the child. So there are so many effects that we can see when it comes to that. And I always say that when it comes to society, whether we like it or not, there's always that kind of somebody is in the middle, somebody is down there, and somebody is up there. Somebody may be able to provide this for the child, and on this side, because of probably lack of unemployment or probably the standard of living there is a bit low. Maybe parents may not be well educated to get jobs that could provide so much, and then realize that kind of imbalance is there. But then You can see all this going on in children's life. And I would like always say, go into their background and realize that there's something missing there, which the school also must also partner with parents to see how best they can meet their needs. I don't know if I've been able to answer. Yeah.
Please, you have muted yourself. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Mrs. Lai, yeah, I said you touch on food and other things, and I would want to have your take on parents giving money to children to buy food on their own, like children between 7 years to, let's say, 13 years. And another one is when we just leave our kids to go to school on their own, kids between 7 years and 13 years, we just allow them. It's not that we cannot afford to take them to school, but just that we feel we just have to allow them to go to school on their own, and we have to let them buy food from outside. What's your take on it?
Okay, when it comes to buying food from outside, it's here, not neither here nor there. Let me use myself as an example. I provide food for my kids, but this is what they say. Mommy, we want food from Monday to Wednesday, but from Thursdays and Friday, we want to buy food from the canteen. This is when it comes to a negotiation. So that is what happens. Monday to Wednesday, they take food from home, Thursday, Friday. But then you find out that maybe another parent, maybe that the child is just buying food from the canteen. If there's a canteen at the school, canteen services, I know that they are trusted, run by the school. That is also another issue done, where you have food vendors all over the place, and you don't even know whether your child is buying food along the road, whether he's buying at the school and all that. But then what runs in one home may not be the same situation in another home. But as much as possible, if we can, let's try and provide food for our kids. If the school is running a school program, feeding program that that can be trusted, and teachers eat from there, everybody eats from there, then that definitely, but not food vendors along the way. So you see sometimes children are coming to school and the parents have to stop on the way, buy watch here, buy rice here, buy this there. For that one, no. But if there's a school system being run at the school, I think there's nothing wrong. But this is what I do. I want to give them food every day, but they have negotiated, Mommy, Thursday and Friday, we want to buy food from the school. So as much as possible, where there's no guidance, and sometimes even give the child money to buy food, but along the way, children are attracted to toffees and other stuff. The child ends up not even eating the right food and has spent all the money buying toffees and all that stuff. And we all know that as for that one, the health issues will come up maybe later, but then they must be supervised and guided. And also when it comes to picking children from school, most cases, I don't want to allow them to go on their own. I always say that when you pick them from school and you are taking them to school, that's when you get to converse a lot. They really unveil a lot to you, and this happened and that happened. You're able to have a lot of conversation. You're able to do a lot of talking on the way. That also bonds you and the kids, but it's not everybody who can do that. So sometimes once in a while you are held up and you have to get a taxi to pick them and all that. But then in this age that we are living in, with kidnappings and all kinds of things happening, your child goes to school and the child is not back, you are not even at peace. But then we must be able to balance it up. Children of that age going to school on their own, even these days, taxi drivers, we don't know if we can trust them or not. They may be agents for somebody, we don't even know. It's just the grace of God that is keeping us all. So I just think that we need to balance it up. What may work in my home may not work in another home, but then in all of it, we should just make sure that the children, are well supervised and guided. And I always tell my children that, for instance, you have a password. So if I am the one who comes to pick, or this other lady comes to pick you, apart from that, nobody is supposed to pick you from school. And this is the password. So in case anybody ever comes to you and asks, I'm asked to pick you, or you are told that your mom said I should pick you, what is the password? If you don't have the password, then you can't pick that child. So we need to just pray and also be there to guide them and supervise them, and the roles that we can play, let us do it well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. To our audience, do you have any experience that you would want to share concerning the effect of parental negligence? Maybe you've had an experience with your child. It might not be maybe a long-term effect, but maybe a short-term effect experience that you would want to share. I don't know whether people would want to talk voluntarily or I would have to mention names. So let me just try and mention names. I've seen Lizzie Sam. Lizzie, please, do you have any experience to share? Okay, I'm sure Lizzie Sam is not available. Rejoice, do you have any experience to share? I think
please no.
Okay, that's fine. Please, Evelina Samoa, do you have any experience to share?
Mm-hmm.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm very happy to be part of this meeting. I think so much have been said concerning parental negligence. I will talk a bit about that and then add to the choices sometimes parents make for their children. Parental neglect or parental negligence is, to me, or with my opinion, I'll say, where a child feels he or she is left out, or he or she is not being involved in whatever, as far as, his or her parents are concerned. I mean, you are a child and then that is all. And this, as Auntie Martha has said earlier, really have so much effect on them. We know of so many of them. I had a maid who was brought up by his father, who was also not always at home. I think for after school, probably after secondary school, this was a JSS mate anyway. After secondary school, I saw this guy in town, as part of, these guys who smoke and that kind of thing. One way or the other, it could be as a result of not having all parents around. Daddy is not having time for me. Mommy is also not around me. But here was the case. This was somebody, when we were in school, he had the best, as in provision, because the mother was outside the country. But because they were not around him, or maybe that is to me, because he didn't get them around him. That was how it ended. He joined friends who might have, introduced him to whatever he was supposed to. Now, I don't know where he is, but I'm not sure, because as I saw him, the state he was in, you wouldn't say he had a life, a longer life anyway. And so parental negligence, as has already been said, has so many effects, and more so negative effects or negative impact on children. And again, to choices parents make for their children. I will use myself as an example. After JSS, secondary school, made a choice of being offering general arts as a course. And here was the case, I was giving home economics. I never liked home econs. My mom was like, whether you like it or not, you are going to do home economics. And so if you won't do it, come and stay home. I had no option than to do it. My first year, I had the best, in fact, and even was awarded with the best food and nutrition student. I came home because it was a speech and prize giving day where my mommy was supposed to be there, being given a gift or something. So she was like, wompe, anka wakwa akonya award room. And no one obey, that is her. I was still like, I don't like it. But then it's something that's though to me, I didn't like it. But anytime I was, into it, people are like, you are doing well, that kind of thing, that kind of praise. And I could see sometimes I don't even realize myself. I think my papa is here and he testifies about that. There has, and Aunt Martha too. There has been instances I have portrayed these, these skills, I'll put it that way, of which they are like, you are doing well. You do well. Your dishes are nice. So why don't you pursue it better? But here was the case. It was a choice for me, a choice I never liked. And one way or the other, it's something that I developed myself in, and it helped. So as Mr. Bright Frio also said, it's better parents also involve their kids, put them down, let them know the chances as to why they are to make those choices. And then in weighing the two, it could be as part of, maybe if it's a talent to be, it is a talent in a passion, or a passion in a skill or in something that you wish doing. The chances of, getting the best is what at the end of the day we have to look for. And so I would say it's a good it's a good, if I would say it's a good topic that has been discussed. And this is the little I would also add concerning that. If parents on board, or potential parents on board, will take this very important, I think it will go a long way of helping bring up children of today. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Evelyn. Martha, are there solutions to it? Can there be a society without parental negligence?
Okay, thank you. There are solutions, but as to a society without parental negligence, I am wondering how possible that can be, because it is still a human society with challenges as usual. But I think that with the right information, it can be reduced or prevented. So one of the things I would say is what we are doing. This is that we are having, because people are neglecting their children and they are not even aware that they are doing it. You see, sometimes it's not completely abandoning the child, that is the neglect or parental negligence. But sometimes the parent is home, the parent may be providing everything, but then some aspect of the child may have been neglected. So talking about it like we are doing, providing education on good parenting on every opportunity given in churches, in communities, it becomes radio discussions, TV discussions, and people's consciousness is drawn to what it means to be a good parent and what it means to be neglecting your responsibilities as parents. I think that can help in dealing with it. Then also, I'll talk about support from family.
Oh my God, I'm gonna scream.
Unfortunately, our society, we are shifting the system whereby
Please, who is Ivana?
Hello?
Please, can Ivana please mute himself or herself? I don't know whether it's a guy or...
Yeah, I'm just like, giving oral right now, so like, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Martha, please continue. Hello, Martha.
I think she has been muted or she's muted herself, so she can unmute and we can hear her.
Oh, okay. Hello. Is this
Yeah,
okay
hello, yeah.
now?
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry for that. So I was talking about the support of family or relatives in raising children. I think we would have to reconsider that, such that the family provides support. Raising children doesn't only become the responsibility of the parents alone, such that if they are not around, then the children suffer. So I think we can talk about support from other members of the family, physically, financially, emotionally. So if you have a case whereby the parent is not physically well, the parent is having some mental issues, then other relatives can step in and play the role of parenting for these children, such that they are not neglected. We can also talk about partners sharing responsibilities, such that the raising of children is not left for only one parent. Sometimes both parents are home, but then it is only one person, maybe only the woman who is supposed to be taking care of children and their needs. And sometimes the person is overwhelmed and then some of the things are not done. So if partners, couple are partnering each other in raising their children, at least some of the loopholes can be catered for. So what the mother cannot cater for, the father covers it up, and then the child is completely raised. Then we can also talk about people preparing before they raise children. Sometimes some of the issues of neglect or parental neglect is as a result of unplanned pregnancy. The person is not ready for a child financially, emotionally, psychologically. The person is not ready to raise a child, but then pregnancy comes in and the person doesn't have any option than to raise the child. And sometimes neglect comes. So in dealing with it, we would have to educate people more to be mature, to be ready before they start raising children, because raising children is a full-time job. Then we can also talk about providing mental health services for parents with mental disorders. So if the case is whereby maybe a child is being neglected and it happens that it is because parents are not mentally stable, or the problem is because there is mental issues, then these parents will have to be taken care of so that they can be in the position to raise their children. Then I think it is high time as a community or as a society, we start looking at a child support services. Sometimes some of the neglect comes from some reasons beyond the parent's control. One thing is that when it comes to this neglect, I think sometimes parents are not intentional not to perform their responsibility, but sometimes circumstances that is beyond them makes it impossible for them to perform their duties. So when we have child support services in our societies or in our communities, such that such children can be raised or can be catered for, I think it can help deal with the children, it can help deal with the situation. And then lastly, I'll talk about parents hiring nannies if the need be. If it is such that probably job demands that you are always out, both parents are out, relatives are not readily available, then maybe you have to resort to the help of nanny so that there is somebody to be able to cater for the needs of the child, so that children, their needs are met and they are not completely neglected or abandoned. So I think that looking forward or going forward, we can be looking at some of these things. Although I don't think that we can have a complete. Hello, sorry for the interruption. So when some of these measures are put in place, I think that the issue can be handled and the level at which it is can be reduced. That's my take on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Martha, as a professional counselor, do you think that it is important to counsel couples before they start giving birth?
Of course. You see, parenting, it seems like, well, you just give birth and you start raising it, but we all know that being parenting goes beyond just giving birth and taking care of children. So I think, of course, counseling is one of the things that can be considered. So at the premarital counseling, because most of the time when people marry and you call them for counseling, they may not respond. But in the premarital counseling, issues of parenting will have to be discussed. Are we going to have children? How many are we going to have? What are the reasons why we're having this number of children? And all of those things will have to be discussed. And then, of course, how are we going to raise them? People will have to be, I think we'll still put all of that people have to be given education as to what goes on in parenting. Because most of the time, when it comes to parenting, it's what we saw our parents did that we do most of the time. And sometimes our parents were not right. And so if we are continuing with what they did, we were somehow neglected, probably at some point in time, neglected at one area which they themselves may never be conscious of. And so if we are carrying the same pattern, then of course, children we are going to give birth to be suffering for that. And so, of course, I think that counseling should be provided, especially at the premarital counseling where they are planning on settling down. These issues will have to be discussed. People will have to be taught. Their views will have to be found. What do you think about parenting? How do you, so when these issues are expressed, then of course the right information can be given and then the right guidance provided such that parents can perform their duties well. Yeah, I support that.
Thank you. Mrs. Lai, please, I have two questions for you. Is it necessary to have a post-marital counseling on parenting? Is it necessary? And the second one is, do you have solutions, like suggestions on solutions whereby we can curb this parental negligence? Thank you.
Okay, I will say that nobody knows it all. So as we have pre-marital, we should also have post-marital. I think it's very, very important because raising children, especially teenagers, it is a very, very, should I say, a very, very sensitive stage where children are feeling like they are not children. They are feeling like they are young adults. They don't even know where they belong. That stage, it is a very, very sensitive stage. So I would say that it is very, very necessary as time goes on. And that will maybe one of the suggestions, maybe to join a parent group or form a parent group where parents can come together, talk about what they are going through, and then possible pray and then solutions. I've done this, it's worked. I know that not everything, what may work in one home may not work in another, but then when you join a parent group, there also that kind of reassurance, and then you are also able to also take some suggestions that may help in your home. Like Sister Martha said, we need to read more about parenting. Like I started from the parenting styles. There are about 4 kind of parenting styles, basic ones. You read through, and probably you want to know what kind of style do I want to use in my home. At the end of the day, we are talking about learner-centered in classrooms where children are active. We don't want to go to that traditional method where you are just sitting in the class and you are giving it to the children 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, whether they understand or not. But then now we are saying that involve children in activities. So also in their home, we need to involve children in their home. So we need to read more and then know the kind of parenting style that you want to operate in your home. It just takes me to that. If you watch that film, The Sound of Music, you see the man when he's calling their children, it's like he's a military man. So they're trying to make their children to a military team, or his house becomes like a military barrack. But at the end of the day, the lady comes in and tries to change the kind of situations in their home. So we need to also look at that. We need to also educate ourselves and educate others too, because most of the time realize that you may see that maybe a parent's attitude towards the child may not be the best. Maybe you try to come in and say, oh, I think next time you could do it this way. And as parents too, we need to model good behaviors. If we want our children to tread a particular way, we also need to show good examples in the home. I also say that those of us who are Christians, the Bible has lots of wisdom in the Bible, even regarding how to bring up our children. For instance, I always say that children are so smart and they know how to get parents. So we see that sometimes children throw tantrums. For example, the child wants something and you say no, right from when they are young. Then you see them on the floor and they'll be rolling around on the floor and trying to make you bend. Now the thing is that from studies in education of young children, the moment you pay attention to the child starts using that as a mechanism against you. Anytime that the child wants something, the child will roll on the floor, knowing that the moment I roll, my mother or my father will pay attention to me. And when they go out in public too, they will do the same thing to you. But then when you come to management of children, realize that when they throw tantrums, you're not even supposed to pay attention to them. So they roll, and they realize that you're not even paying attention. Then they get up, they realize that, no, I can't get to them this way. So with parenting styles, we need to read about even child development. We need to do that as they grow, the things that the milestones, what they will achieve, the things that, it will make us to know exactly where they are. So parents come to school as young as 2 years, they don't want to wear a particular shoe. They want to wear something else as young as they are. And I'm like, at this early stage, if they can start making decisions at this early stage, why don't you allow them? So wearing the shoe, what is it going to do? Nothing. Does it spoil anything? No, but you want the child to wear white and the child says, no, I want to wear blue. So I just want to say that there are so many, Sister Martha has said a lot that we can use so that we can actually, some of the solutions, it is never too late for parenting if we have gone some other ways and we know that, no, we can do it this way. It is never too late to come back. So like you said, post-marital is very, very important when it comes to bringing up children, so that at the end of it, we all have a common goal to make sure that our children grow up to be responsible adults, grow up to be responsible people in society. Parents will be proud, society will be proud, heaven will also be proud. Thank you.
You. Please, just the last question, then I think we round up. Do you think that these stakeholders have a role to play in minimizing parental negligence? I'm talking about the society, the church, the extended family, and let's say traditional rulers, or let's include them. So these 4 stakeholders, do you think that they have a role to play in minimizing parental negligence?
I would say that when a child is born, he is born to a family, but also born to a community. So I would say that in time past, anybody could discipline anybody's child. You misbehave, and it's like, I will discipline you when you go home, go and tell your parent that this person, so, and so. But then the society which we live in now, if we don't take care, some people even get offended, but it shouldn't be. So the child belongs to a community. And for our church, when you are born and you're dedicated in the church, the whole church is like, would you support these parents in bringing up the children? Everybody will say yes, which means that when I see Mr. A or Mr. B's child going, I shouldn't say that's not my child, so I don't care. Or Mr. A sends the child to school, I'm driving and I see Mr. A's child on the way, not near school. I shouldn't say, oh, it's not my business. She can do anything that she likes. We should be out there. The church has a great role to play, organizing parental counseling, parental workshops about raising up children in this contemporary world. The community has a great role to play. Traditional rulers, they also have a great role to play, so also sensitizing us as to what is expected. So we are all together in this. You cannot isolate yourself and say that you're an island, which means that if you want to isolate yourself, then it means you don't have to be here. You have to be somewhere else where you can be alone. But then all of us have a great role to play in making sure that these children grow up to become responsible people in society. Because if they are not, society is in trouble, families are in trouble, we are all in trouble. But then we all have a great role to play to making sure that these children grow up well. Yeah.
Thank you. Martha, please, your final words. Hello, Martha.
Yes, sorry for the delay. I was having difficulty of muting myself. So finally, I will say that children are a gift from God. And the moment we are blessed with that gift, we have a responsibility as parents to raise them to becoming responsible people. So whatever our challenges, maybe whatever the shadows or whatever the situation is, it is our duty to raise our children to become responsible. And so in doing that, we will have to look for every means available to be the best we can be, because the first point of call of the human being is the family. Whatever any other person puts in is an other thing, but then the core thing comes from us as a family. And so I would say that parents will have to equip us. So the moment we get the idea that we want to be parents, then we will have to find proper means of raising them. In however means we will learn it, we will have to learn how to be parents. And then I would say that since God is the overall boss in all of these, of course, he's the one who created the human being in the first place. He's the one who knows how the human being is and how they can be handled. We cannot take him out. So if we are Christians, if we are Muslims, we have a religious belief, then of course you will have to go back to our creator to help us in that. I know that those of us who are Christians, scripture have guidelines on how to raise our children, and then we have a responsibility as parents to pray for these children. You see, sometimes so many things happen. Sometimes it gets to a point you cannot control what your child gets exposed to or what the child does. At your blind side, things happen. But we know that even at those blind sides, if we have God on our side, we are able to pray for them, then we are assured that they are safe. And so I would say that parenting is a great task, but then I know that if we raise responsible children, it is also, there is so much reward and so much joy in raising responsible children. So I pray that the Lord helps us such that in the gifts he gives us, we are able to make the best good use of them, so that our children become responsible and useful for society. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Laye, please, your final words.
I just want to say that parenthood is a great gift that God has given to parents to be able to take care of the gifts. And when somebody gives you a gift, you want to take good care of it to make sure that it's in the best shape. So God has given us that great gift to be parents. The gift that he has given to us will render account. So let us be careful of what we do. And I will say that the whole child is not just one aspect, the physical, the social, the emotional, the cognitive. I mean, the child is the whole child. Every aspect of the child needs to be catered for so that at the end of the day, the whole child is complete. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll add a little to it. What I want to say is that the home is to be the primary place of instruction for children, as Proverbs chapter 22 to 1 to 6 speaks of righteous training to guide, direct, correct, encourage the children by both the mother and the father. So it is not the sole responsibility of the mother, neither is it the sole responsibility of the father, but together you can be able to bring up our children in a way that they would not feel neglected. And I also advise that if there are any marital conflicts between the two parents, it should in no way affect the children, because when you continue to do that, the children might even feel neglected. They might think that you are not giving them what you are supposed to give them, or you are not living up to expectations, and it will go a long way to affect the children. I also advise that the children should be our friends, and we should seek their interests, be it their education, their present and future plans, their anything, social interests, everything concerning them. We should also be able to look out for them, and we should feed them well. It is important to feed them well. It is also important to share quality time with them, because sometimes they feel neglected. They think that, I have one experience whereby sometimes I'm so tired that I don't even want to come out of my room. I would want to rest. Then my children will walk in and tell, Mommy, why are you not coming to the hall? Come to the hall and let's watch TV together. We feel that they feel so lonely. They think that I have neglected them. I don't even want to watch TV with them. But sometimes it is not our fault. We get so tired that we don't even want to get up. But in as much as we are tired, we should be able to share quality time with our children. And above all, we should also meet their physical, psychological, and emotional needs. And we shouldn't forget to pray and read the Bible with them as well, because it is important. And we might do everything with them, but when we neglect the word of God, it will go a long way to affect them. On that note, I think we have been able to discuss this topic very well. We have learned a lot, and it couldn't have been possible without our well-abled facilitators. I think they have given us an in-depth knowledge of this topic, and we are so grateful to Mrs. Lai and Miss Martha Kwachua. May God richly bless you. And to our audience, those who were able to join us, we thank you so much. And we know that anytime that we have these programs, you'll join us again. Is there any question that somebody would want to ask, or any comments that somebody would want to pass? Okay, so if there are no settings, then I think we'll end this program, and we thank you all for joining us. See you again next week. Bye.